right, now that you've drawn and written your versions of chaos, we're going to continue the process and continue the story. So, like we said, first there was chaos, and I read for you two ancient versions of that myth and the very little information that our ancient sources gave us about chaos, which again is why it's such a great story to begin with, so that you can use your imagination and get into the ideas of Greek mythology. So what's next? Well, very simply, Gaia, Mother Earth, sprang from chaos. How did that happen? Nobody says, really. I'll read you the versions in a second. But what's Gaia? Gaia's the earth, but she's a goddess too. So it's important to realize that the Greeks and their religious beliefs are very complicated. When you think of like a god like Zeus, he looks like a man, he's got lightning bolts, like he appears like a king, like a human king, but that's super powerful. But the Greeks and Romans also believed in other kinds of gods, gods that weren't necessarily so human-like. So, what's Gaia? Well, Gaia is the earth. That is, it's the Greek word that means the earth. That is, this is where we get our prefix geo, like in geology, the study of the earth, or geography, the mapping out of the earth. So, the way the Greeks kind of believed in this was Gaia is the earth. It's the physical ground that we stand on. But at the same time, she's a goddess, and she's clearly female. That is, the noun Gaia is grammatically female, and the goddess that is the same thing as the earth is also female. So, kind of have to think of it in more than one way. That is, it is the earth, the planet Earth, green. But at the same time, there's a spirit that dwells inside the earth, or a goddess that is the earth. Now in this picture, which again is designed for elementary students to give you like a first idea of how to kind of conceptualize this, you can see like there's a face kind of coming out of trees. And that's one way for the art to depict the meaning. However, in no Greek myth do we have somebody crawl up Gaia's nose or walk along her eyebrows. That is, it's a metaphor or an allegory. So let's see again what our ancient authors have to say. Hesiod in the Theogony says, "In the beginning there was only chaos, the abyss. But then Gaia, the earth, came into being, her broad bosom the ever-firm foundation of all." And that's all he has to say. Again, the ever-firm foundation of all. That is, the earth as a source of life. Now, Ovid in the Metamorphoses, who again is writing 800, 700 years later than Hesiod did, maybe 600, somewhere in there, he actually has a different god, an unnamed god, who is the creator of the universe but is otherwise not explained whatsoever. So chaos was just described. A god and nature, now become benign, ended this strife. He separated sky and earth and waves, and he defined pure air and thicker air, unraveling these things from their blind heap, assigning each its place distinct, he linked them all in space, in peace. Fire, the weightless force of heaven's dome, shot up. It occupied the highest zone. Just under fire, the light air found its home. The earth, more dense, attracted elements more gross. Its own mass made it sink below. And flowing water filled the final space. It held the solid world in its embrace. When he, whichever god it was, arrayed the swarm, aligned, designed, allotted, made each part into a portion of a whole, then he, that earth might be symmetrical, first shaped its sides into a giant ball. Then he commanded seas to stretch beneath high winds, to swell, to coil, to reach and ring shorelines and inlets. And he added springs and lakes and endless marshes, and confined descending streams and banks that slope and twine. These rivers flow across their own terrains, their waters sink into the ground or gain the sea, and are received by that wide plain of freer waters. There they beat no more against their banks, but pound the shoals and shores. At his command, the fields enlarged their reach, the valleys sank, the woods were clothed with leaves, and rocky mountains rose. And as the sky divides into two zones on its right side, with just as many to the left, to which the hottest zone is added a fifth, the god provided regions that divide the mass, the heavens wrap, and he impressed as many zones upon the earth. Of these, the middle zone, because of its fierce heat, is uninhabitable, and thick snows cover the 2 outer zones. Between them he aligned 2 other regions, and into these he gave a clement climate, mixing heat and cold. Okay. So, the Earth, Gaia, what is she? Now, if we look at modern versions of Gaia, or ancient versions, you don't really get too many ancient versions, unfortunately. That is, most ancient artists just skip over this part of the story. Kind of like with chaos, they just keep the story moving. So, Gaia again represents Mother Earth. That is the spirit of the earth. So, modern artists, Gaia is a very popular artistic concept to depict. Usually a lot of green, a lot of blue. Think about what the globe looks like. Maybe integrate a globe or a sphere into your art. Again, Gaia is female. Greens, life, maybe plant life, animal life coming out of her. Maybe yours is going to look more like the earth. That is, the idea of the feminine goddess is not immediately visible, not entirely seen. It's more of a metaphor. It's more of like a symbol. Clouds, oceans, land masses, browns, greens. Think about forests, mountains, deserts, all the various landforms. Or maybe you want to depict it more as a goddess. You know, here depicted as sort of like praying. Remember that when we study Greek mythology, we are studying an ancient religion that ancient people did believe in. But again, life, plants, animals, definitely include some plants and animals, blues, greens, and again, vaguely female, flowers, growth. Think about trees and plants and what kind of colors you'd like to get in your version of Gaia. And again, do you want to stick with more of a globe idea or more of a goddess idea, or do you want to try to bring them together? See if you can try to bring them together. The idea of a feminine goddess at the same time as the earth as we know it, with oceans and land masses. See what this artist did? This is clearly South America, where you can see mountains, you can see deserts, you can see the Amazon, and you can see the oceans and the clouds, blues and greens. And here's a close-up of that. Again, the eyeball really showing you like the humanity of it. The Greeks would always give some aspects of humanness to whatever god or goddess it might be, even if it's not a fully formed, looking like a person god, again, like Zeus. Light, plants, growth, life. Gaia is life. That is, the earth is why we're alive. We need to have plants. We need to have an atmosphere. We need water. We need food. Now, those of you that might be familiar with like, say, Tolkien, you know, maybe you're thinking of something that like a giant Ent goddess or something like that, made of a tree. And that seems to be what this artist might have been looking for. You know, a giant tree of life. If you're familiar with Thor and maybe some Norse mythology, maybe from Marvel Comics or from the MCU, if the entire universe was a tree with different levels, maybe you want to integrate some of that imagery. Okay, so now it's your turn. Remember, you can watch the video a second time, listen again to the literary versions that I read for you. Remember that you can rewind, pause, fast forward through these videos. And again, take some time to think about it. Sketch out some notes, sketch out some preliminary drafts. Again, then you're going to write in your notebook, handwritten, a full paragraph describing your version of Gaia. Again, you can describe what she isn't, you can describe what she is, maybe how she forms out of chaos. Give me at least a full paragraph. and then fill an entire page with your version of Gaia. Now it's time to get some color. It's going to be difficult for you to stick to a good Gaia without getting some blues and greens in there. So feel free to use colored pencils, pens, markers, crayons, anything you'd like, but give me a full giant page just of Gaia. All right.